Steven, welcome to Telesemana.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Uh, we're happy to have you here. So let's discuss a little bit one topic that we haven't heard much yet in FutureCom 2010. Perhaps you have. We've been here in this booth doing interviews. And it's net neutrality, which probably the only country in Latin America which is taking steps towards it. Has been Chile. Yes. So tell us what's your definition of net neutrality, because I think the first issue we encounter with net neutrality is the definition, which different people define it differently. So how would you define it?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right. There are many different definitions going around, but depends. I mean, the most well-known definition is that of the FCC in the US, the most documented, well-publicized. And it's having to do with the complete openness of the internet, broadband, to consumers. So it is really about allowing consumers to get access to any type of service in any type of way without any operator or regulator tiering or prioritizing the service. That's, in a nutshell, what it is. Just complete openness to any type of content, any type of service.
Okay, now, what's your opinion of net neutrality given that definition?
Well, net neutrality in practice is as is already showing in the world, particularly in countries like the UK, US. We happen to have done our research there. Is an issue because broadband capacity, particularly mobile broadband, I haste to say, is not an infinite resource. There's actually not enough available for particular high bandwidth eating applications. So a carrier has a worry to ensure that the quality of experience, the quality of service for the majority of customers is maintained. If they would be disallowed to control the network as based on the net neutrality regulations, if countries would apply that, a lot of consumers would not actually get access to broadband at all. Which again, is actually happening in countries like the UK. There's been well-known cases where customers couldn't even access the internet or couldn't even access certain services. And so carrier, in my view, has an active role to play. What's also very interesting is that when we actually did our research in the UK and the US, we did research here as well, but we asked particularly the UK and the US because of their slightly further ahead in the curve. If people were willing to accept certain measures that allows the service to run better, the majority, in some cases over 70% of consumers, actually said yes, because they're experiencing this problem firsthand. So net neutrality needs to be looked at from that perspective. So we, as Acision, we totally agree that there's a full right for consumers to get free access to communication and information. But at the same time, that doesn't mean they have the right to consume the majority of the bandwidth. And I think that is something that will evolve, particularly in those countries, and will come to Brazil. I'm absolutely sure of it.
Okay, let me put you a scenario, because in my view, net neutrality is about scarcity, and that's how at least operators in the US are saying, okay, in the fixed world, net neutrality is fine. On the mobile world, it's not fine because we have scarce resources. But at the same time, they are selling their service as if it was not scarce, because they're selling it unlimited.
That's very good.
So I don't know if that makes them not qualified to use that excuse, first of all. And second of all, when we deal with scarcity, the best way to manage that is increase prices or tire prices or have different levels of subscriptions. So I don't know if we're talking about two different things when we discuss net neutrality. One would be we have scarce resources and we need to manage that. Second of all, then we have the rights of consumers. So I don't know if the excuse of net neutrality, scarce resources actually applies.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm making this simple, but...
No, you make perfect sense. And in fact, again, research shows very clearly that the life cycle for broadband is one where the bandwidth, the technology needs to be there, the usability of the devices needs to be there, like an iPhone, for instance, and many other devices, I haste to add, of course, that are hitting the market. But a trigger for growth is price. And why? The moment carriers give easy to understand pricing, not per megabyte, which is prevalent in this country, for instance, then we see a massive growth. You actually see proportional growth immediately, exponential growth. Sorry. What is interesting is carriers need to do this to attract people to their networks, to make it simple. Because this is such a new service for carriers, it's the first access service that carriers are doing. Next to voice and SMS, which are services, this is an access service, which the majority of traffic is over the top, means it's not their information, it's not their data. So they are learning as they speak for the last 5 years. Most carriers are learning that all you can eat, that a small percentage of users, let's say 5%, can eat 80% of the bandwidth. So it's true that they now need to retract some of their plans, right? It's well documented statements from CEOs of US carriers are saying publicly, we made a big mistake. Same happening in the UK, and they're actually, yes. So it's
Telecom has said the same thing.
exactly. So more and more carriers are actually now coming back to that and say we need to manage this, and we need to price it appropriately. Now, the first measures that are being taken today are quite rudimentary. What it means is they're introducing data capping, which basically means that you can't use more than what you're entitled to. But the problem isn't just that. It's not just about extending capacity. It's not just about data capping. It is about the quality of experience of people. And it has to do with the service. And that means that networks need to become content aware. And that requires capabilities that under the net neutrality regulations, carriers would not be able to put into the networks. Because it would manipulate, in a positive way, because it actually helps the service in such a way that consumers get a much better quality of service. Now, again, our research shows that quality of service and quality of experience issues are very, very high, in particular mobile broadband again. There are over 70%, and in Brazil even higher, right? So in other words, there is a real necessity to do it, and there is a real necessity to allow carriers to manage this properly. Not only to make the business case for themselves better, which they have a perfect right to do, but also to make the quality of service consumers better, and to allow consumers to choose what they're willing to pay for. Now, some people that are proponents of the net neutrality say, don't touch the network at all. I don't think, from an Acision perspective, and from many carriers that agree with us here, from experience, right, that's an option. Something needs to be managed, and the only way to do it is to make your network subscriber and content aware. And we're not there, but we see the first steps happening. And it's actually the role that we play. So we actually allow carriers to do that. And I think in many ways we're probably furthest ahead of our peers because we actually take all these capabilities and have that integrated live in our labs. And the good news is we're actually going to do that in Brazil on a lab and show carriers what can be done to do this. And because we are there, we're actually being invited by regulators around the world, such as the Ofcom in the UK or regulators in Chile, to talk about this, and carriers there. And talk about what the reality is of what's happening in the world and what carriers can do about it.